Welcome. Glad to see you all here wanting to know more about health and what to do to be healthy. Let's just start with a prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, thank you, God, for being with us today and bringing us together. Thank you for the nice fellowship meal we had together. Please be with us now as we learn more about how to be healthy. In Jesus' name we thank you, we pray. Amen. All right, so now that we just got finished with our potluck, if we can still stay awake, we'll talk more about eating for health. Last month when we talked about gut health, I had several people come up to me and they wanted to know more specifics on how to eat healthy, what you should eat. So I thought we can look a little more at what's healthy and how to read food labels, kind of how to understand what it means to eat healthy. So first of all, let's think, what is a healthy meal to you? What do you consider a healthy meal? So look at this plate that you see on the screen. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And think of, that's your blank plate, and imagine what your healthy meal would look like. What would be on your plate for your healthy meal? What is healthy eating and how do we define healthy eating? What are some of the things that motivate us to eat healthier? And what are some of the rewards that we associate with healthy eating? What are some barriers that make it difficult to eat healthy? So these are just some questions to think about, and we may be able to answer most of them today. What are the benefits of eating healthy? Well, the known benefits are that you'll feel better, you'll have more energy, have healthier looking skin, teeth, and hair. You'll be going to the doctor less frequently and to the dentist. Better mood is associated with eating healthy, being less likely to develop certain diseases such like diabetes and heart disease, and have better weight control and disease management. So the Dietary Guidelines, these are created for Americans every 5 years, and they're developed by a rigorous scientific committee. They utilize the latest federal food, nutrition, health policies and programs to inform My Plate, that's what they call the program, about different foods that we should be eating. So basically they translate the science and the recent research into food-based guidelines that we can follow, that we can rely on, so we can choose foods that make up a healthy diet. I can get this too. So this is one of the examples that you will find. It's called My Plate, and you'll see that a healthy plate should be made out of a quarter fruits, a quarter vegetables, a quarter grains, and a quarter protein. And they also have a little spot there where you have your dairy. And it also says, it's kind of small, the print, that more than half of your grains should be whole grains, and your protein should vary. So it's important to know that a lifetime of eating helps to prevent chronic diseases like obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes. Healthy eating is one of the most powerful tools we have to reduce the onset of disease. And the path to improving health through nutrition is to follow a healthy eating pattern. So we'll look more at eating patterns rather than at ingredients. So eating patterns is basically a combination of foods and drinks that we eat over time, and they are adaptable to our tastes, our preferences, traditions, cultures, and budgets. So we'll try to focus on eating patterns and not on individual nutrients. This graph here shows the dietary intake of Americans compared to the recommendations, and it shows how they are below or above the recommendations, the limit or the goals. And you'll see they have it divided or by fruits, vegetables, grains, dairy, protein, oils, added sugars, saturated fat, and sodium. And it will show population that is below the recommended and the population that is above the recommended. And we'll see this chart again. Back to the leading causes of death in our country. This is from 2015. Last month I presented one that was from, I think, 2019. But still, the top 3 leading causes of death are heart disease, cancer, and chronic lower respiratory diseases. So heart disease has been number 1 for more than 20 years now. I know in the last year, COVID is up there and it was number 2 for a while, and then it went back down to below number 4 or something like that. So I don't know where it is at today, but still heart disease, it's been the number 1 cause of death for many, many years now. So again, looking at the recommended patterns for eating, there are 3 different ones that are more known or popular. It's the healthy US style eating pattern, then the healthy Mediterranean pattern, and then the healthy vegetarian pattern. The American Institute for Cancer Research recommends that we aim for meals that are made up of 2/3 or more vegetables, fruit, whole grains, or legumes, and only 1/3 or less of animal protein. A vast array of phytochemicals are found in vegetables, in the legumes, in fruits, in spices, and whole grains, and many may provide protection against cancer. So listed up there are in blue the different phytochemicals. Also, these phytochemicals are known to interfere with the cellular processes in the progression of cancer. The American Institute for Cancer Research has the 10 cancer prevention recommendations, and I probably won't go into all of these, but maintain a healthy weight is one, move more, eat well, enjoy a plant-based diet is one of them, reduce red meat, avoid processed meats, cut down or eliminate alcohol, eat less salt. So these are some of the recommendations to avoid or to decrease our chances of getting cancer. These are some other examples of a plate, what a plate looks like. So this is a vegan plate for somebody that's avoiding animal products and wants to eat plant-based. So you see there's mostly fruits on there, then there are vegetables, there are grains, there are legumes, and there are nuts and seeds on there. And also you have to be aware and make sure that you take vitamin B12 if you don't consume any animal products. Also vitamin D is important, and iodine. I know most salt is iodized, but that's not the best source of iodine. Another example of a plate, what a plate should look like, this is from powerplate.org. Yeah. Well, salt is fortified. The iodine is added to salt. You can get it from seafood, well, I should say sea vegetables like kelp and algae, and there are iodine supplements.
Thank you.
So this is the plant-based diet. Basically, uses mostly fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and very minimal, if any, red meat, poultry, seafood, eggs, and dairy, or you exclude them. So if you focus on eating mostly fruits, vegetables, and the whole grains and nuts, your health is going to be much better than somebody that focuses on eating the red meat, the poultry, seafood. So what are nutrients? And what are food groups? Because I said I don't really want to focus, and as a rule when we want to eat healthy, we shouldn't really be that focused on nutrients. We should focus more on patterns and food groups. So nutrients are what foods are made of, and they provide the nourishment and what's required for growth and life. There are 2 different kinds of nutrients, and some people are aware maybe of these. They're micronutrients, and they do not contain calories. And then there are the macronutrients, those contain calories. And then food groups are basically a collection of foods that have nutritional similar properties, and they're made out of many different nutrients. Another picture that shows the different types of plates and how we should make our healthy plate. So what are the macronutrients? Macronutrients, they provide us with energy that we need to move and breathe. They perform important functions in our bodies, and we need these macronutrients in large quantities. And the macronutrients are the carbohydrates, the protein, and the fats. So let's look at carbohydrates. These carbohydrates, they provide us with energy, and they are made of individual sugar molecules linked up in chains. They can be simple or complex. One example is table sugar is a simple carbohydrate, and the whole grains are complex carbohydrates. So those sugar molecules are linked together, many of them in a chain, and they're harder to be broken down by our bodies when we eat them. So some sources of carbohydrates, I think we know that fruits, vegetables, starchy vegetables, because not all vegetables have, or some have higher amounts than others. Dairy, grains, bread, pasta, etc. Beverages have carbohydrates, especially simple carbohydrates. And the sweets, sugar, cookies, candies. I think most people know what carbs are. And this is a little more in depth about carbohydrates. So they are molecules that have carbon and hydrogen, oxygen atoms, and they have three main categories, the carbohydrates: sugars, starches, and fibers. The sugars are the sweet, the short chain carbohydrates, and those are glucose, fructose, and sucrose, and the table sugar. Starches, these are longer chains of glucose molecules, which eventually get broken down into glucose in our digestive system. And then fiber, humans cannot digest the fiber, but the bacteria in our digestive system likes fiber, like we talked last month about gut health, so that the fiber is basically a prebiotic for bacteria in our gut, for the healthy bacteria. So fiber is very important to our overall health. And one primary purpose of the carbohydrates in our diet is to provide the fuel for our bodies. Most carbs are broken down and transformed into glucose, which then will be used as energy. These carbs can be turned into fat and stored for later in case there is a need. Now, the other macronutrient is protein, and the protein function is to build and maintain tissues like bone, muscle, build substances in our body and provide energy. It's made of smaller chemical compounds that are called amino acids. And the sources of proteins are lentils, beans, nuts, seeds, tofu, fruits, vegetables, meat, eggs, dairy, like yogurt, cheese, milk, etc. So lots of different proteins or sources for our protein. The third macronutrient is the fat. So the fat provides energy, helps build important substances in our bodies. And there are different types of fat. There's saturated fat, there is unsaturated fat, trans fat, and cholesterol. And the sources of fat, we know that they come from fatty meats and fish, from nuts and seeds, from oils, from butter, and different baked goods to which fats have been added to. Now, the micronutrients are the ones that are required in very small amounts, and they're required for normal development, for prevention of disease, and maintaining our health. They are not produced in our body, so there we need to get them from our food. And it's possible to get a supply of micronutrients in supplement form, but it's better to get them from whole foods. So the micronutrients are the vitamins, the trace elements, and the minerals. Water is one important element we should not forget. Our bodies are made 60 to 70% of water, and the water helps, among other things, regulate our body's temperature and helps our body get rid of waste. Phytochemicals, these are powerful chemicals that are substances that are produced by plants and that affect our health. And some of these phytochemicals are found in vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. They are not found in any animal products. So calories, what is a calorie? A way to measure the amount of energy that can be transferred from our food to our bodies. A lot of people are concerned with calories. We'll look at nutrient-dense foods and low or empty calorie foods. The nutrient-dense foods have a lot of nutrients but small amount of calories. And example of those, again, are vegetables and fruits, beans, legumes, and the whole grains. Empty food calories have very few nutrients but have a lot of calories, and these are soda, alcohol, chips, candies, pastries, soft drinks, processed meats. So back to my plate, what our plate should look like. We should focus on whole fruits as possible, fresh as much as possible. Our vegetables, we should vary our vegetables, try to eat a variety of vegetables. Grains, the same with the grains, and make the grains at least half of the grains whole grain. And then the protein. And also for people that do not consume any animal-based products, to remember to supplement B12. And again, this looks at, the chart looks at how Americans eat the food compared to their recommendations. And we are below in the vegetables, we are below in the fruits. In the grains, we're doing okay. So if you see the blue, the third one from the top down, we're consuming enough grains, but what kind of grains are we consuming? Dairy, we're consuming a lot of dairy. Protein foods, we're consuming a lot of proteins. Oils, we're consuming a lot of oils. Too many added sugars, saturated fat, and way too much salt. So eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables has been shown to lower risk of heart disease and stroke, to lower blood pressure, to protect against certain cancers. Also will provide a lower overall caloric intake. That's why people that eat mostly plant-based have lower body mass indexes. So it helps with weight management. It also lowers the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And except for fruit juice is not necessarily going to lower your risk of the vegetables and fruits improve our health and promote also healthy vision. So not one single fruit or vegetables provides the nutrients that we need, and up on here the list shows that different vegetables have different phytonutrients. You can see there's broccoli, there's the oranges, tomatoes, blueberries, garlic. Each one of these have different phytonutrients, and all of these phytonutrients are very important for our health. So that's why it's important to vary our use of the vegetables and eat as many as possible. So the vegetables, why they're also good? Because they have, like we said, they're nutrient rich and they're low in calories. They're naturally lower in fat. They provide potassium, fiber, folate, vitamin A, and vitamin C are some of the important vitamins that we get from vegetables. And here's another chart with the vegetables. You see dark leafy green vegetables that they contain potassium, vitamin A, vitamin C. The carrots, they have antioxidants such as carotenoids. Also, other vegetables or grains, they do have vitamin C, potassium, but if you look at, corn is on there. They're starchy vegetables. They're high in carbs. There's some vegetables that are high in protein, like the beans, and those also have folate. They have potassium. They're rich in iron and in zinc. And the other ones that are the onions or spices, they also have several different nutrients that are very beneficial to our health, and I won't go into the details of what each vegetable contains. So some tips for eating vegetables: try to eat fresh vegetables and what's in season, and try to consume as much of a variety as you can. So portions and serving sizes for vegetables. Based on our plate and the recommendations, we should consume at least 2.5 cups per day of vegetables, 2 cups non-leafy greens, and a cup of raw leafy greens are equivalent. 2 cups of non-leafy are equivalent to 2 cups of vegetables. So leafy greens are better than non-leafy greens. Fiber, another important aspect of our diet. So like we talked about fiber in the last month, and that fiber is a type of carbohydrate that our body can't digest, but it helps lower blood sugar and our cholesterol levels. Also, fiber is what keeps us full. It promotes regularity and prevents constipation. And sources of fiber are whole grains, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds. So how can we add more fruits and vegetables to our diet affordably? It's not that difficult. Some people will say, oh, eating fresh fruits and vegetables, it's expensive. But if you actually look at prices, look at a Snickers bar, and it's 78 cents. But if you get a few apples, yes, they're $1.17. But look, you have there 4 apples and a half. And the amount of calories is the same, but if you look at the fat, sugar, and sodium in that Snickers bar is a lot higher. The apples have fiber, they have phytonutrients, and they have vitamins. So back to the chart that shows what we consume and compared to the recommendations. Grains are another one of the nutrients that show that we consume enough grains as a population, but what kind of grains do we consume? Whole grains are the ones that are the best for our health. I think most of us know that processed grains are basically the simple carbs, and those turn into sugars into our bodies quickly. So whole grains are the grains that have the bran, they have the endosperm, and they have the germ. And then the bran, there are fiber, antioxidants, and B vitamins. The germ has healthy fats, also has B vitamins, has minerals and proteins. And when you eat a refined carb or refined grains, they're stripped of the bran and germ, and they only have the endosperm, which is mainly carbohydrates, and most of the nutrition has been taken away. When you select foods at the store, don't be fooled by labels. And especially when you're buying bread, you think you're getting something healthy, but multigrain or 7-grain or cracked wheat doesn't necessarily mean it's whole grain. Make sure to read the ingredient list, so not just what's on the front label, just turn over the packaging and read what's on the back. Because the front, sometimes it can say 100% whole wheat, and that's probably okay because it says 100%. But when others say whole grain, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're whole grain. And here's a list of different grains that we can eat. There are lots of different grains, and they're very tasty. They can be prepared in many different ways. Another comparison to how you can eat healthy and on a budget, not very expensive. You look at these packages of tortillas. Well, the smaller package, it's $1.38, but it only has 18 tortillas. If you look at the package on the right, that one has 80 tortillas, and it's less than $1 more. So it's important to kind of pay attention and plan accordingly. Also, the breads, if you look at the bread on the right, it has way less sodium. If you turn it over and look at the list of ingredients on the back and at the nutrition facts, and you see the potato buns there, they have more sodium, and they also cost more than the bag of sliced bread. Now, our proteins, how are we doing with our proteins? In general, Americans consume more proteins than necessary, or the goal, the limit. So what are protein food groups? These are different protein food groups: seafood, meat, poultry, eggs, nuts, seeds, and legumes. So the protein should be a quarter of our plate. And what are some protein foods? So most foods have proteins in them. They have the building blocks of proteins, the amino acids. So not just animal foods contain protein. People often ask, if you don't eat any meat, people say, where do you get your protein? Well, meat, beef, we all know that those have protein, but also plant foods have plenty of protein. Legumes, soy products, tofu, soy milk, vegetables even have protein, even potatoes have protein. Seeds, fermented products have protein. So most every food has protein, then just some of them have higher amounts of protein than others. So here's a little comparison. Lentils are high in protein. So is steak, and so are the hot dogs. But lentils are very low in sodium and saturated fat free. They don't have saturated fat. They may have a very small amount of fat, and they're high in fiber. But compared to the steak is high in saturated fat. It doesn't have any fiber, and it may be high in salt also. So is the hot dog. It's full of saturated fat and full of salt. So the health benefits of healthy protein: lower risk of several chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease and premature death. And remember, cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in our country for the last at least 20 years. Also, the healthy proteins decrease the risk of cancer death, and they decrease the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Especially red meat is associated with increased risk of cancer and developing type 2 diabetes, and that also is something that the World Health Organization has recognized for several years now. This is a little print from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and it talks about protein. I think the font is too small and you can't really read what's on the chart. It just shows that we as adults, we really don't need more than about 60 grams of protein per day to meet our daily needs of protein. So a little bit about soy, because a lot of people are avoiding soy, thinking that soy will cause problems because it has estrogen. Well, soy doesn't have estrogen. Soy is a plant that has phytoestrogen. It's not the same as the hormone estrogen. So it provides isoflavones that these may provide some of the benefits of estrogen, but none of the hormonal aspects of estrogen. And studies in people who consume soy, even up to 6 servings a day, have shown that soy does not affect hormone levels, and also that they have no effect on sperm count, because some men say that soy will affect their fertility. So when they quote that study, I think they did it on somebody that was eating like 20 or 30 servings a day of soy. And when we speak about soy, we're referring to soy in its natural form, not the foods that you get from the store that are meat substitutes. Those are processed, and it's not just soy in there. There's a lot of things, and even the soy in there, it's highly processed. So we're talking about whole soybeans, or maybe tofu, because tofu it's processed because it's not the whole soybean, but it's minimally processed. So soybeans or tofu or tempeh or soy milk, those are okay to consume. And This is Patrick Baumann. He's the record-holding German strongman. He's the strongest man on earth, and he said that the strongest animals are plant eaters, gorillas, buffaloes, elephants, and him. Yeah, so vegetarian and vegan diets typically meet or exceed the recommended protein intake when there is adequate caloric intake. So people that eat a normal diet, normal food, they will have no problem having enough protein in their diet from plant foods. Only people that may have digestive issues, they may have issues, but that's not because the plant food can't provide the protein, it's because their bodies are having a problem digesting foods. So, do we need to combine all kinds of different plant proteins to get that complete protein? Well, the short answer is no. Eating a variety of plant foods throughout the day, if you eat enough for your weight, will provide enough of the essential amino acids that we need to help our body make the complete proteins that we need. And this comes from the World Health Organization about red meat that increases the cardiovascular risk disease, the type 2 diabetes, and cancer. And another chart here to show the different foods that are associated with cancer. This also comes from the World Health Organization. So you see that preserving the meats, curing them, smoking them, enhancing the flavor, all increase our chances of getting cancer. For those that are concerned with our environment and greenhouse emissions, you will see the first line there on the left, it's lamb. That's where how most greenhouse emissions are from raising animals. So you'll see if you go down the chart, it gets less and less greenhouse gas emissions from vegetables. Also, based on data from 3 large cohorts followed over 12 to 16 years, and that included 289,000 people, the health studies of the health professional follow-up study showed that these participants who mostly consumed meats that were cooked at high temperature were 1.5 more times likely to develop type 2 diabetes compared to those who ate the least. So meat cooked at very high temperature will increase your chances of high intake of red, especially processed meat, will increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, cancers, and early death. Another look at foods and cost of foods, and just wanted to show that eating healthy is affordable. If you look at that little can of Spam, it's $1.98, and it has probably like 3 or 4 servings in it. And that bag of lentil is $5. Yes, it's more than the can of Spam, but
That's expensive. How about that cheaper?
what's expensive, the lentils or the?
Yeah.
Well, I think in that bag there's like 4 pounds of lentils.
Okay.
It's a bag that has 4 pounds of lentils. So that bag of lentils has 52 servings of 1/4 cup. So it's way more food in that bag and a lot healthier than eating the Spam. So if you'll see, the bag of lentils, it's high in protein, actually has more protein than the Spam. It has fiber, it has no salt, it has no saturated fat, no cholesterol, and no added sugar. And if you look at Spam, look at how much sodium it has. 790 milligrams of sodium, saturated fat, and cholesterol. And we'll look at food labels and learn a little about how to look at food labels. And we'll talk about salt and sugar and oils a little bit too. So we gotta look at food labels and kind of know it's important to read the food labels more than it's important to read the front of the package, where the front of the package is meant for marketing and advertising. So there are parts on the food label that you'll see there are serving sizes. It tells you how many servings per container. I don't know if this clicker has a pointer. Yeah, it does. So, and how many calories? These are calories per serving. You can't hear me if I turn around though. So you see, it's important to look at all these things that are listed. They also list percentages of daily values on the right side of the label. So why do we want to know what is on a food label? Well, because it shows the serving size, it shows the nutrients, the calories, and the percentages basically are based on those recommendations that those plates were showing that they came up with, that the government came up with, that are recommended for us to consume. So looking at serving sizes, well, the serving size, you have to see how much is in one serving, because a package, sometimes it looks like it may be one serving, but when you actually read the package, it probably says 4 servings on there. Everything on the label, usually what's on here, it's per 1 serving. So the calories are per 1 serving. So if the serving is a cup, those calories are for a cup. Or if the servings are for half a cup, those values on this label are for that 1 serving. So the fat, the sugar is for 1 cup or 1 tablespoon, whatever it says. This one says tortillas. It's for 2 tortillas. This label is from a tortilla package. And it shows that 2 tortillas are 1 servings. They have 110 calories, and they have no fat. They have 320 milligrams of sodium, 30 milligrams of sodium, and total carbohydrates 22 grams, and 2 grams of fiber. And vitamins, they really don't have much in vitamin, just a little bit of iron. So when you look at these percentages, you want to see something that has at least 5% of your daily allowance and not more than 20%. So this is just to look at serving sizes and kind of calculate the serving sizes. So that package shows that 2 tortillas are a serving size. So if you eat 4 tortillas, you're eating 2 servings, so you need to multiply those numbers by 2. If you're eating 6 tortillas, you need to multiply those numbers by 3. So if you're thinking you're getting 110 calories when you eat 6 tortillas, well, no, you got 330 calories. So that's why these food labels are important. This one shows a can of Arizona sweet tea, and it shows that it has approximately 3 servings, but the calories are 90 and sugars are 22 grams, and that's per serving. So if you drink that whole can, you have to multiply those numbers by 3. So you drank 66 grams of sugar, and we'll talk a little bit about sugar and how much sugar we should be consuming. So that's why it's important to pay attention to the labels and not just read the front of the package. And here's another example, the potato chips. Serving of potato chips, basically it's 15 chips, and it has 160 calories, and it has 10 grams of fat. Well, this bag pictured here has 14 servings, and I can tell you, I know people that eat a whole bag at once. So when you eat 14 servings, 10 times 14, that's 140 grams of fat. Sugar, sodium, so all these things you have to keep in mind that you're multiplying. Same goes for cereals. When you eat your cereal in the morning, you think you're eating healthy, but look at the ingredients, look at the nutrition facts, how much sugar is in that cereal, how much salt is in that cereal, how much fat. Most people, these servings, it says this is for 3/4 of a cup. But how many people pull out a cup and measure what they put in their bowl? No, just open the box, and you just fill your bowl to whatever you think, and you put milk over it. So the truth about serving sizes is that these were based on data that was gathered in the 70s, in the 80s, and it was used back then when the nutritional label was first created, and it hasn't been updated since. And people used to eat a lot less then, so the portions we consume nowadays are much larger than they were back then. So next, we want to pay attention to the ingredient list. The items are listed in the ingredient list. They're not just randomly put on there. They're in order from the highest amount to the lowest amount. And always look at the first 3 ingredients and try to choose items that have whole foods listed at the first 3 ingredients. If you look at this one, it says, it's hard for you to read, the font is small. It says that the first 3 ingredients are sugar, corn syrup, and hydrogenated palm kernel oil. So is that something you want to buy? Probably not. So check the ingredients. If the product also has a lot of words that you don't know and you can't recognize on the list and it's too long, it's probably not a very healthy option, and it's probably highly processed, and you probably should pass it on. There are thousands, I think, of chemicals that are added and preservatives to our foods. I didn't put it in the slide here because I have so many slides and I wanted to make room for more important stuff, but there are lots of additives, chemicals, food colorings that are added to all these foods that are packaged. So it's important to read the ingredients. Also, don't be fooled by all these labels that you see on the packaging. These are just marketing. These are labels used for marketing. So if you see real fruit, if you see real honey, heart healthy, fat-free, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Back, I think it was in 2000 or earlier, Kellogg had put on a box of cereal that was like Fruit Loops or something. It says that it enhances or improves your child's immune system. Yeah. And they were sued for that because there's no way, there was nothing in that box that improved their immune system. So just beware, these labels are made to promote marketing, not to actually. So look at the labels. In the back, read the ingredients. This Cheez-It box says whole grain on it, made with whole grain, but if you turn it over, it says enriched flour. It doesn't say whole wheat flour. This is example of oats, and you see the one on the right, the colorful box, it says lower sugar on it. And yeah, it maybe has lower sugar because it says it's with sugar, salt, cinnamon, monk fruit, and natural flavor. But if you look at the other one, old-fashioned oats, well, which one's lower in sugar? The old-fashioned oats, because it's just oats in there. There's a difference between natural occurring sugars and added sugar. So the oats may have some sugars in them. Those are naturally occurring, that occur in a lot of the foods. Same with this protein bar. Look at the Nature Valley protein bar and look at the Larabar protein. The ingredient list is much higher in the one on the left side compared to the Larabar. So, here's the slide. I did put it in. I thought I skipped it, but here are the thousands of chemicals that are found in our foods. So, over 1,500 food additives that are approved by the FDA, plus over 140 food colorings, 4,000 that are considered generally recognized as safe chemicals, 500 pesticides, and 2,700 natural and artificial flavors. All these can be used in all the different kinds of foods we buy at the store that are prepared. So another comparison, these cans of fruit. So the one on the left side, it says that it's in heavy syrup. So the pears in there are in heavy syrup. So that heavy syrup is water and high fructose corn syrup, and then some sugar and some more corn syrup. And if you look at the other one, it says no sugar added. That particular can, I wouldn't think it's the best either because it has some artificial sweetener, which those are not good either for us. So speaking of sugar, this is one sugar cube has 4 grams of sugar, and that's one sugar packet, it's 1 teaspoon of sugar. And the recommendation for us to consume our daily recommendations, it says that less than 10% of our calories should come from sugar, and that should be less than 50 grams or 12.5 teaspoons of sugar daily. So not more than 12 teaspoons of sugar. So average consumption, this is the average consumption in our country. Most people consume 88 grams of sugar per day, or about 22 teaspoons of sugar. So where do all these sugars come from? So most of them come from what we drink, from the beverages. And then the next highest percentage comes from snacks and sweets. And beverages include soft drinks, fruit drinks, sports drinks, energy drinks, coffees, teas, alcoholic beverages. Look at a can of Coke. How much sugar is in there? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 packets, 40 grams of sugar. Look at a bottle of Mountain Dew. There's 77 grams of sugar in a bottle of Mountain Dew. This, I think, it has like 2 servings. This is one of those like 20-ounce bottles. And I know people that would drink at least 2 of these a day. This is a energy drink, popular energy drinks. This one has 27 grams. There is another one, the Monster energy drink, and for sure it's a Monster because it has 54 grams of sugar. And this shows there are hidden sugars in beverages, so we don't realize. So if you consume an orange juice for breakfast and you have a latte as a snack, and then you have a Coke with your lunch, and then you have a coffee, and then you have a lemonade later with snack, and then you have a glass of wine, then this can add up to 848 calories per day. And usually the recommended calorie is based on weight and male or female. I mean, for a female it's like 1,700 calories to 2,000 calories. For males, 2,000 calories to 3,000. So if you're a female and you drank this, you basically used more than half of your allowed calories. You drank them with these different drinks. Right. Yes. So you consume half of the allowed amount of calories in drinks. So it's important to differentiate between sugar and whole foods and processed foods versus foods that have added sugar. It's very different. The foods that are whole foods, those sugars are actually healthy sugars, and you won't overconsume those because those have water, have fiber, and they fill you up, and you won't be able to consume as many. This is another nutrition label that shows how calories per servings. Whole foods versus processed foods. So the whole foods help us feel full. They have natural sugars and fibers that take time to digest, and they won't spike our blood glucose levels. Sugar is sent to the liver slowly. But if you drink juices, even natural juices, 100% juice, it will still has no fiber. You get more sugar in a shorter amount of time, and it's quickly absorbed into the liver, and your liver is overworked. So what are some ways of reducing sugar? Well, try to drink more water first. If you drink coffee or tea, which I don't recommend, but drink them unsweetened. Add seltzer water to juice to kind of dilute it, and overall just reduce the consumption of non-water beverages. Now let's look at fats that are liquid and solid. So oils are the liquid, mostly liquid fats, and oils contain a high percentage of monounsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fats. And they're liquid at room temperature. They're not a food group, but they're a major source of essential fatty acids and vitamin E. So oils are liquid at room temperature. Solid fats are solid at room temperature. And some solid fats, they go through a process called hydrogenation. They contain more saturated fats and trans fats than oils. They raise our LDL, which is our bad cholesterol, and they increase the risk of heart disease. And this is Dr. Kim Williams. He was the president of the American College of Cardiology. And he said that there are two kinds of cardiologists, vegan and those who do not or have not read the data. So back to heart disease and death rates. 1 in 4 people die of heart disease. Every 42 seconds, someone has a heart attack. Every minute, someone dies from heart disease or a heart disease-related event. And heart disease costs over $207 billion each year. So some healthier cooking methods than avoiding fats. To avoid fats, it's stir frying, roasting, baking, poaching, and sauteing. Now let's look a little bit at salt, because salt is another one of those nutrients that we consume too much of. And if everyone reduced the amount of sodium in their diet by at least 1,200 milligrams per day, it says that up to 99,000 heart attacks and 66,000 strokes could be prevented in the United States each year. So what is the daily recommendation for sodium? It's less than 2,300 milligrams per day. And where does most of our sodium come from? It comes from mixed dishes, and mixed dishes are prepared foods like burgers, sandwiches, things that are made with pastas, rice, grains, lasagnas, casseroles, meat, poultry, seafood, pizza, soups. And here are some examples. These are the salty six, the highest. Breads can be high in sodium. You have to read the label. Soups, canned soups are high in sodium. Pizza is very high. Processed foods. So look at this one. It has a slice of this smoked turkey deli meat has 520 milligrams per one slice. Well, when you make a sandwich, who puts one slice of this deli meat in their sandwich? So if you put 2 of them, you're already at half of the sodium intake that you should have for that day. So that's why it's important to read labels when you purchase things. If you look at these Subway sandwiches, these are 6-inch Subway sandwiches, and a lot of people eat footlongs, especially men. So if you look at the one on the right, the one higher, it has 1,160 milligrams of salt, and that's in one sandwich that is this big, and there's your half of your sodium intake for the day. And here are some canned soups. One has lower sodium, says reduced sodium, but you'll see it still has 940 milligrams of sodium for that can. Same with these burritos from Del Taco. One burrito has 2,000 milligrams of sodium, and the amount that we should have per day was 2,300. Yep. So you eat one of these, you should be done for the day. You should have no more salt for the day. Same with pizza. Pizza is even worse. Look at the one on the right. That Papa John's pizza has almost double what we need to consume in a day. So that's for the whole pizza. It's not a slice, but these are 10-inch pizzas. These are personal pizzas. So a lot of people eat one of those in one sitting. Not everybody, but I know I eat half. I don't get that kind of pizza, but I get a mod pizza that's a vegetarian pizza, and I eat half of that. Yeah, I think most people eat more than half of a 10-inch pizza. So here's again, the recommendation is less than 2,300 milligrams per day, which is a teaspoon a day. So if you're pre-hypertensive or a hypertensive, you should eat less than 1,500 milligrams. Do you have a question?
Well, a comment, I remember when I went to an Adventist health school for 6 weeks. The thing was don't buy anything at the store that has over 300 milligrams.
Per serving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good rule to remember. So again, back to those labels. Look at the labels, and this is what the front of the package may say: salt, sodium-free, which that usually means it's less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. Very low in sodium usually means 35 milligrams of sodium per serving. Low sodium, 140 milligrams. If it says reduced sodium, it's 25% less sodium than they typically put in it. Light in sodium, it's 50% less. No salt added, or unsalted means no salt added. So that's what's important, to look at the labels. If you look at this dressing bottle, Light Ranch, it has 260 milligrams of sodium, but that's per 2 tablespoons. Who measures their ranch dressing or any dressing when they put it on their salad with a spoon? No, yeah, you take the bottle and you just kind of squirt it, and when it looks just right, you toss your salad. So some tips for reducing the sodium intake. Know the salty 6, remember those things that we mentioned earlier. Read the label, the nutrition label. Prepare your own food when you can. And add sodium-free flavors like herbs and spices. Try to eat more plant-based foods and avoid processed animal foods. Those are very high in sodium. If you can't find no sodium canned foods, make sure to rinse them. Try to choose unsalted snacks and reduce portion sizes, modify condiments. Here's another example, this ramen noodle soup. The bag has 2 servings, this little bag, and 1 serving has 830 milligrams of sodium. Well, I don't know that anybody really eats half of that bag. Pretty much everybody eats the whole bag. When you prepare that bag, you eat the whole bag. The same thing with this. This is like a little container of mashed potatoes. They're dry potatoes. They add water to them and make mashed potatoes. Well, yes, they're cheap, but they have 440 milligrams in 1 serving, and that cup holds more than 1 serving. You can get 2 fresh potatoes and just cook them. Have no sodium. Yep, they do taste better. Same with this, shows how easy it is to consume extra sugar and fat. This is a McCafe Frappe, and it has 260 calories in 1 bottle, 6 grams of fat, 180 milligrams of sodium, and it has 44 grams of sugar. How many sugars should we consume in a day? How many grams? 0. Well, there was a limit.
28?
50 grams. 50 grams of sugar or less. So this 1 bottle, you're almost at your limit for the day. Same thing with sports drinks, which are touted to be healthier. And it has less sugar, less calories. This says it has 80 calories per serving, but that bottle has 2.5 servings. So if you consume the whole bottle, you ate 8 times 3 is 240, or 8 times 260 plus another 40, 200. So you did eat a lot more sugar than you thought. These are just examples of food programs to help for people. There are resources out there, and if somebody has trouble getting healthy food, come to me. I'll help you locate resources. I want to talk a little bit about calorie density, and I think my chart is too small. You can't really see those numbers, can you?
I can't. We can't see.
So basically, these foods and how many calories they have per pound. So if you look at vegetables, a pound of vegetables has between 60 and almost 200 calories per pound. Fruit has 140 to 420 calories per pound. Potatoes, pasta, barley, corn, they have about 320 to 600 calories per pound. Beans, peas have from 300 to 7 calories per pound. Breads, and when you look at fat-free muffins or dried fruit, these have from 900 calories to about 1,300 calories per pound. Sugars, honey, molasses, agave, corn syrup, maple syrup, you'll see that a pound has about 1,200 to 1,800. And dried cereals, baked chips, fat-free crackers, pretzels have even more calories per pound. You go up to 1,700. Nuts and seeds have from 2,400 calories to 3,000 calories. And oil has 4,000 calories per pound. And this picture is probably easier to understand what a calorie or what 500 calories look like. So if you see the one with oil in your stomach, there's a tiny little amount of fluid in there, but that's 500 calories. And if you look at the picture all the way to the right, the fruits and vegetables, your stomach would be full, and that's when you have 500 calories. So some foods are more calorie dense. So if we're concerned about our weight, we need to focus on foods that are lower in calories. And this is another example that what 100 calories look like. So you see cucumbers, a whole plate of them has 100 calories. Popcorn is low in calories, especially if it's not oil popped. Egg white, sweet potato, but if you look at the Snickers bar, it's like a tiny little piece of a Snickers bar, and it says 20 milligrams of the Snickers bar. So here's another picture that kind of shows nuts have 166 calories per ounce, but if you have eat an apple, it has 14 calories per ounce, so big difference. A couple of studies I want to mention. The Adventist Health Study was done. Over 96,000 Adventists were included in the study, and they were from ages 30 to 112 from the US and Canada. 8% of them were vegan, 28% were lacto-ovo-vegetarian, 10% were pesco-vegetarian, 6% were semi-vegetarian, and 98% were non-vegetarian. So majority of them were non-vegetarian. But if you look at the results, the vegetarian diet was linked to lower risk of heart disease and diabetes. And there was connection between high consumption of cooked green vegetables, dried fruits, legumes, brown rice, to a lower risk of colon polyps. And the colon polyps are precursor to colon cancer. And they were linked to a plant-based diet to an overall higher quality of life. And there was another study called the EPIC study, European Prospective Investigation of Cancer study, that looked at 65,000 participants in the United Kingdom, and the study is ongoing. It began in '93 and it's ongoing. And this study shows so far that those who consumed a vegan diet ate the most fiber and the least amount of saturated fat and overall fat, compared to omnivores who include meat in their diet, also had the healthiest body weights and cholesterol level. And even when compared those to vegetarians who tend to include dairy and eggs in their diet, vegans had the lowest systolic and diastolic blood pressures, as well as the lowest rate of hypertension of all diet groups in the study. So higher consumption of animal-based foods were associated with higher estimated environmental impact, whereas the consumption of more plant-based foods was as part of a lower meat-based vegetarian style dietary was associated with estimated lower environmental impact. So for those so concerned with our environment, because that is what is trending today, people are very concerned about the environment. Well, the more plants you eat, the better it is for your environment. And this picture shows that kidney beans versus beef. Well, for beef, you need 18 times more land, 10 times more water, 9 times more fuel, 12 times more fertilizer, and 10 times more pesticide to get a pound of beef versus a pound of kidney beans. And I want to mention the blue zones. I don't know if you're familiar with the blue zones. These were studied several years ago, where people lived the longest, healthiest lives and had the highest concentration of centenarians, and those are people that are 100 years old or older, compared to the global life expectancy of 78.2 years. So there were 7 regions in Italy, in Greece, in Japan, and Costa Rica, and one region was Loma Linda in California. And we know Loma Linda is where a lot of Adventists are congregated. So they came up with Power 9 principles, basically move naturally, know your purpose, downshift, the 80% rule, basically eating 80% fruits and vegetables, plant slant, wine, no wine after 5, right tribe or belonging somewhere, sense of belonging, loved ones first, and don't smoke. So these are kind of what they noticed when they looked at these 9 groups. So implications for us, the Bible tells us that we are not our own and our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. So whatever we do, we need to glorify God. God's original plan was for us to eat plants, as it says in Genesis, is that we should eat every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, and shall have them for food. And I have 2 very long quotes here, or actually maybe I have more than. Okay, I probably will just read a couple more. I have some quotes from Ellen White on here that I wanted to mention. One says, abstemiousness is, I can't say this word. Abstemiousness in diet is rewarded with mental and moral vigor. It also aids in the control of the passions. Overeating is especially harmful to those who are sluggish in temperament. These should eat sparingly and take plenty of physical exercise. There are men and women of excellent natural ability who do not accomplish half what they might if they would exercise self-control in the denial of appetite. And this one is a little bit longer. It says, these things ought not so to be. Whether there you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Or now being tested and proved, many to whom precious light has been given desire to return to the flesh pots of Egypt. Many who are supported by the tithe from God's storehouse are by self-indulgence poisoning the life-giving current flowing through their veins, disregarding the life and the warnings that God has given. During the past 25 or 30 years, some continue to gratify their desire for flesh meat. We are not to make the use of flesh meat a test, but we may and should consider the influence that professed believers who use flesh meat have over other churches. Those who use flesh meat disregard all warnings that God has given concerning his question. So these are just a couple of, and I will leave it at that. I have many other quotes that she talks about how we should eat and what we should eat so we can glorify God. Well, I think we are done. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
Maybe you covered it, I just didn't want to hear, but the difference, is it better to just do regular cane sugar than like something like sucralose or?
Yes, absolutely. White sugar is not good for you, so it's better if you want to use something sweet to eat dates. They're very sweet. Or honey is better than sugar too.
Cane sugar is better than the other.
Yes, it's better than artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners are not a healthy option. A lot of people.
Doctor says sugar is sugar.
Sugar is sugar, and it's still bad.
Whatever it is, sucralose, dextrose, whatever,
Yeah, they're bad for you.
it's bad.
Yes.
Stay away from it all if you can. But if you got to, use something. And sucralose is better than some others.
Actually, no, sucralose is pretty bad. There's plenty of data that
It's not like
if you really want to use, not quite, but it's not far from it. I will bring you information on sucralose if you really want. If you want to eat some, maybe stevia you can use instead of sucralose. It's a little healthier, or monk fruit sweetener is better. But if you really need to eat something sweet, honey is healthier than sugar.
Takes a lot of the sweetening.
Any other questions?
I've tried it all.
Yeah,
It just tastes bad.
yeah, sweets are good.
Cut the sugar out.
Keep pouring the honey in before it goes.
Any other questions?
It's a good presentation.
All right, thank you.
Good job.